I'm going to give my opening statement. Good evening. I'm Ricky Townsell, chairman of the Milwaukee branch NAACP Political Action Committee, and I will serve as your moderator for tonight's virtual town hall forum. On behalf of the president of the Milwaukee branch NAACP, Mr. Clarence P. Nicholas, and the rest of my committee members, I'd like to welcome you all to the latest installment of our continuing series of town hall discussions with not only the candidates who seek our vote, but also with members of the parties they represent. The purpose of these forums is to ensure that our constituents are totally clear on where each candidate and party stand on the issues that are important to them and us, and will affect their daily lives for years to come. Tonight, we're honored to have with us a representative from the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. For the sake of total transparency, invitations to this evening's event were sent to both the Republican and Democratic parties of Wisconsin. Shortly before the start of this event, I received a message from the Republican representative stating that there was an event that was a last-minute situation that had to be attended, and they will not join us tonight. However, had their representative been present, we would be asking them the exact same questions that we're asking the Democratic representative tonight. In light of their absence, we will proceed. However, we do extend an open invitation to the Republican Party of Wisconsin to join us in a future virtual forum. And the message that I received from the Republican representative, he will be listening in on tonight's forum, and it's offered to submit answers to the questions that will be presented tonight. The office will endeavor to get those answers out to those of you present and the rest of our constituents. However, if we are successful in bringing the Republican representative to our next forum, we will ask a different set of questions, but all will be on the same categories of tonight. And those categories are policing our schools, community policing, voting rights, minimum wage, protecting our democracy, party membership, undecided voters, and party loyalty. To our guests this evening, I bid you welcome. We understand that your time is valuable, so we must adhere to a schedule as much as possible. We will have 5 minutes for an opening introduction and opening statement, after which I will ask you 10 questions. You will have 3 minutes to answer each question. If time expires, we will allow you an opportunity to finish your point. You will also have 5 minutes at the end for a closing statement. You will see a clock on your screen that will let you know how much time you have left. If there are no questions of me, I turn the floor over to the representatives from the Democratic Party. Please introduce yourselves and present your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Townsell. It's great to be here with you all. My name is Felicia Martin, First Vice Chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. I am also a Milwaukee County Board Supervisor here in Milwaukee County for District 7. I, again, am grateful to be here with you all tonight to answer questions that you may have, but also to be transparent and straightforward with you all. Thank you.
Um, is there are there any other representatives from the Democratic Party present? I was told there may be two of you. Excellent. I assume
Yes,
there are.
yes.
Yes, there are.
I'll allow you have the same part of those 5 minutes to introduce yourself and any open statement you'd like to make.
Amazing. Thank you so much. My name is Keywan Jennings. I go by Key. I am the Black Coalitions Manager with the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. I'm here to help our Vice Chair in anything that she needs. I'm happy to be here and excited for this conversation.
Outstanding. And we welcome you both. In view of the fact that we do not have a Republican representative, tonight may be a little faster than we've allotted. However, we will complete the question period. All right, our first question. Either of you can take the lead in answering. It has to do with revenue sharing. Act 12, the revenue sharing bill that was passed by the state legislature and adopted by both the city and county of Milwaukee, will do little, if anything, to improve the lives and livelihoods of the citizens of our city and county. What is your party's position on this issue? And do you think there's a more equitable way to use the additional revenue that will be generated from the increased sales tax?
Thank you. That's a terrific question. And what I will say in regards to the shared revenue, and coming from the county perspective, we know that we didn't have the same barriers put on us from Act 12 as the city of Milwaukee had placed on them. So I just wanted to make sure that we're understanding that's clear. Shared revenue. We understand that Milwaukee County has been sending millions of dollars to the state of Wisconsin, and that we support the entire state of Wisconsin, but we don't get our shared revenue back. And the Democratic Party is committed to equity. Not only racial equity, but equity across the board. We know that Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County has the largest population of African Americans and brown people in this state. And we're always seen to be targeted by our state legislator for some odd reason. And the Democratic Party, again, we stand for equality, and we want to see Milwaukee do well and rise with all other counties throughout the state. Because one thing we will recognize and admit, that Milwaukee County is the economic engine of this state. And with Milwaukee County falls, it's a domino effect across the state of Wisconsin. But I'm so thankful for Governor Evers for signing that historic shared revenue agreement. We look forward to rolling out and watching what's going to happen over time with these bumps in revenues that are going to be generated by the sales taxes for both Milwaukee proper and the county. And I want to make certain that we are understanding that those sales tax dollars that were placed on Milwaukee County, they can only be used for one thing, and that is to address the pension issue. That hole that blew a big hole into our budget every single year. And the city, the way they're going to roll out, Mayor Johnson is going to be, and his team will be sharing that with you all. But from the Democratic Party standpoint, the shared revenue bill is not perfect. What was signed into law is not perfect. It's not going to solve all of the problems that we have, but we know, and I hope I'll just continue with this since we have a little bit more time. We know that the Republicans have put constraints on us so that we don't have local autonomy across the board, across Wisconsin. Local municipalities do not have control. And the Republicans have prohibited Milwaukee specifically from using tax monies to support, we're talking about the city, support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And that is something that all of us must pay attention to. Why are they prohibiting these DEI initiatives from going forward at the city? We need to make sure we're holding them accountable for that, and they need to answer for that. We need to hear their strategy and
I'm afraid
increasing the police in our
all
schools.
time.
Okay, thank you. I'll
Although
try not to be so long-winded.
I understand. No. I'm allowing additional latitude simply because the Republican representative is not here, and they do have the benefit of preparing prepared responses to the questions that we're asking. And we are going to make every endeavor for the sake of transparency to make sure that our constituency receive the answers to these questions that we receive from the Republican representative. Before I move to the next question, I will give Key an opportunity to expound if he wishes. I give you 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to say, leaders like Senator LaTanya Johnson, Rep. Kaylin Haywood, Sylvia Ortiz Velez, they all voiced their support for this year's revenue bill. And just to piggyback, it's important to know that this is not perfect. We all know this, and it was something that we had to do. Quite frankly, we didn't have much of a say at the negotiating table. We were pretty much hostage to take whatever they were willing to give us. And this is something where, like, if we didn't get it done, the city will be in dire situations moving forward. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Our next question is a follow-up to the previous question, and that's policing our schools. Part of Act 12 requires that the Milwaukee Police Department place officers in 25 Milwaukee public schools, and that MPS pay for the officers' presence. MPS and other community organizations are opposed to this initiative because of the burden it would place on an already overstretched budget. Also, there are concerns that the ultimate responsibility for this action will fall on the tax-paying citizens of Milwaukee, let alone the negative impact it sends to our students. What is your party's position of a police presence in our public schools, but not our suburban schools? And are there any viable alternatives that your party are prepared to put forth to protect the lives of our children while they're in school?
Excellent question. I will say that our stance is that we support what the families would like to see in their schools. And we know that Act 12 has stipulated that we have to use dollars to increase policing. There are police in suburban schools. Some of my colleagues on the county board often share that has helped a lot. I'm not of that opinion. I'm of the opinion that whatever the parents want for their schools, that's what we need to do. And over-policing our African-American communities is not an answer. They need to work with and not against what our MPS board would like to see and what the parents would like to see. And those are the initiatives that we will continue to support, and we will continue to honor the families and those MPS workers who are saying where the resources need to be placed. We need to increase resources to our public school systems and allow for their control and have the Republicans to remove any constraints around that. And I know the governor himself has wanted to put forth more dollars into our public school systems, and they keep striking it out of the budget. And that is something we have to continue to push back on. And I'm not sure that police and schools are the answer.
Key, would you like to expound on that before we move to the next question?
Yes, I would like to say, as Vice Chair, as our Vice Chair mentioned, this was already decided by the parents and local electeds. And so this is just another way that we've been stronghold, pretty much forced to do something that our community does not want or need, for that matter. And it's just another way to prove that the initiatives of the Republican state legislature and Milwaukee are vastly different. And we see that by just these type of requirements for governing our city. And so when we look at increasing police presence and in a city that feels over policed to this point is not something that anyone wants. And we know that, as Felicia mentioned, Governor Evers is a public education advocate. He wants to invest more into public education, and it's ridiculous that we are diverting efforts to pretty much ensure that our children are feeling more and more policed.
Okay. Before I go forward, I'd like to introduce the Republican representative that is joining us tonight. It's Mr. Orlando Owens. And as I stated, I'm going to allow him an opportunity to present answers to tonight's questions. However, those of you present have an advantage in that you can answer directly and in live. And Mr. Owens has an advantage where he can prepare prepared answers. And that's why, once again, I extend an invitation to the Republican Party to join us in a future forum so that we can get a full, uncensored version, explanation of the Republican Party's position on the issues of concern. We're going to stay with the issue of community of policing, but now the question is community policing. HR 1280, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021, addresses a wide range of policies regarding policing practices and law enforcement accountability. As you know, there's a great mistrust of the police in Black and brown communities in Milwaukee. What is your policy's position on community policing and developing a plan to improve the relationship between the police and the people that they're sworn to protect?
Am I to speak first, or is Mr. Owens going to speak?
I make the assumption, ma'am, that you are the lead, and I will allow Key an opportunity to speak if he has anything to say that you haven't addressed.
Oh, okay, thank you. The Democratic Party is in full support of the George Floyd Act and implementing community policing where we can build trust and a good, strong working relationship and an understanding of the proper relationship our community should have with the police, and allow more autonomy from the citizens in policing, in forming a community police force. It just makes sense. I'm not going to give you a politically correct answer. I'm just going to tell you, when the community is fully engaged and fully invested in their own community, when those residents are fully own that community, we are able to hold one another accountable. And that is what the Democratic Party has always stipulated: local control and empowering our residents with the tools the means and opportunities to improve their lives and to hold one another accountable, as well as holding our police force accountable for every decision that they make when it comes to their interaction with residents in our communities across the board, no holds barred. And that's what we will continue to fight for, more resources to mental health and human services, and less to the budget of the police force. We all know for certain that a budget and your finances shows you exactly what your priorities are. And right now, when we look at policing in Black and brown communities, we see more dollars going to policing our communities than assisting our communities with housing security, food security, strong public health, mental health services, and whole health services for physical health, prescription services, all of these things that go into building good, strong, sailing from plane to plane. I don't know the best way to say it is, we have to put those resources where people can continue to grow higher and higher, work their way out of one situation into that next level. If I start at poverty, give me the tools and the resources I need to get into that working class, from that working class into the middle class from the lower to the middle to the higher, the upper middle class, and then maybe on to wealth, if we have the same opportunities through education and the other resources that they have in our suburban schools. If we can have our children engage with professionals when they're on the high school level, and maybe even interest them in skilled trades, putting our budget dollars towards those kind of initiatives and opportunities lends itself to good, strong communities. And when we have all of those primary needs, housing, food, education, and jobs, when we have those four things covered in our communities, we do better. And that's what we want to do. And then policing, that can go down because everyone is thriving. And when everyone is thriving and meeting their full potential and are full participants in their community, adding value, not subtracting from the community, we all do better. And we don't need a stronger police presence. We can then start to decrease our police presence in our communities.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. And forgive me, Key, for not giving you your 30 seconds, because your answer is a perfect segue into my next question. And it has to do with education. The school choice program in Wisconsin is said to be draining Milwaukee public schools of students and resources. MPS students are being drawn to suburban schools so that those school systems can take advantage of federal dollars earmarked for education. This has created a disparity in the quality of it. Well, it's said it is creating a disparity of education, of the quality of education in MPS students. There's a US Supreme Court precedence that's set in both the Brown versus Board of Education and Green versus the School Board of New Kent County, Virginia, that states that all students, regardless of school district, have the same opportunity. According to these groundbreaking Supreme Court decisions, do you see the current school choice program in Wisconsin as unconstitutional? And if not, why?
Well, we know that for decades we have seen divestment in public school systems, and I am so thankful for Governor Evers. After decades of having previous administrations divest in public education, he is looking to increase spending in our educational system for public schools. And that's what we need to do. And we're going to allow the legal eagles handle whether or not, if it's constitutional or not. Here's what I do know. And this is not political. This is the honest to God's truth. Choice, charter, and all of those schools came out of a need to continue on parochial schools continuing on because grandmother and mom and dad are no longer leaving legacies to finance those parochial schools, those Christian education schools. We have in our Constitution separation of church and state. If we're going to have separation of church and state, it should also include separation of parochial schools from public schools. Those dollars should not be funded and funneled into those religious educations. If a child is going to a voucher school, and then there comes recording day in this calendar year, school year, that child gets counted on their rolls, and then they are able to expel those children and they get funneled back into the public school system. But this is the key part. Those dollars don't follow that child back into public education. So that is something we need to hold people accountable for. And we must understand that's a key part. Now, our public schools have improved during Governor Evers' tenure, and we know that there's more to be done to support our student successes. Governor Evers is investing more and more in supporting our teachers and our school systems to ensure that they have those resources and that they are properly supported. But we as voters and as elders and leaders in our community, we have to continue to fight and push and demand that Republicans fully fund and resource public education, because they're not going to offer up vouchers for every single child. Every single child can't be in a choice school. So why not funnel and resource public schools that they are strong and they're able to compete with other schools? And that's all we're asking, is that Black and brown children not have to be picked and chosen over, but why not just fund the public school system so that all of our children, poor, Black, brown, whomever, are able to get a quality education, which is demanded of us and mandated of us. And again, I'm thankful that Governor Evers continues to recognize Black communities face all of these issues in public school systems and is doing everything that he can to continue to resource our schools so that they have the dollars and other resources that they need to deliver good, solid, strong education for all children and all communities. And that's what we really need to do. We are continuing to fight. The Democratic Party is going to continue to fight for strong public school systems. And if it is found in the legal system that these charter and choice schools are again unconstitutional, let's make certain that we're supporting that idea and that we come back and fully source and fund our public education system. Your mic is not on, dear.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Keith, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to expound. Okay, we'll move to the next question. We're going to switch tracks a little bit. We're going to talk about affordable wages for all, AKA the minimum wage. The national minimum wage has not kept up with the rate of inflation. There are many people in the city of Milwaukee that are living at or below the national poverty level. What is your party's position as far as the raising the minimum wage? And what efforts are your party prepared to take to make sure that every American has an opportunity to have an affordable wage?
As you know, well, maybe you don't know, the Democratic Party has always supported strong working families having strong, viable jobs with good pay. Now we look to our unions for those good paying jobs that is able to sustain a family. And that is what the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and will continue to fight for, to make certain that every single able-bodied person has a family sustaining job and that they have a family sustaining wage. And we know that $10 an hour, which a few years ago was what people were pushing for, it's not a family sustaining wage. We know that the fight for 15 is a strong fight and we continue to support them. But in today's economy, even $15 an hour is not enough. But what we will say, the Democratic Party stands with our union brothers and sisters fighting for a viable wage where parents can dream, and not only dream, but actually actualize the dream of sending their children to college, actually having the ability to afford college for their children to improve their lives. That is what we will continue to fight for. We will continue to support the trades and offering that as a pathway for folks to lift themselves up out of poverty. We know that those jobs are family sustaining jobs. Learning a skilled trade, you're always going to need an electrician. You're always going to need a plumber until someone develops a better way of operating things. So we can get our folks hooked into these skilled labor jobs. That would be awesome, of lifting people up. And the Democratic Party of Wisconsin is committed and fighting and will continue to fight for a fair wage for fair work. And also, we want to make sure that with a laser being focused, that we sound this alarm that Republicans have legislation waiting in Wisconsin State House right now to roll back child labor laws. I don't know about you, but I do not want to see a child working until midnight on anybody's job. I don't care what kind of job it is. I want our children to be able to focus on school and what they need to be focused on as children, not as adults. If we give the parents a fair wage for fair work, that should be enough to sustain a family without putting our children in sweat tents, making whatever it is, widgets, socks, shoes, whatever. We do not want our children working long hours. So let us continue to keep our eyes on that legislation that is going through our Wisconsin state legislature, where they want our children, 14 years old, to be able to work till 11 o'clock p.m. at night. That is something that we will be on that battlefield and pushing back against. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin does not support these child labor laws that are coming down the pike. So along with fair wages, I want to sound that alarm and make sure you have that on your radar, that not only are companies not wanting to pay fair wages with the Republican support, because they are for that top earner and putting dollars more into the dividends that they pay their stock and shareholders, okay? That is not what we are for. Fair labor, fair wages. For
Thank
a good
you,
day's
Art.
work.
Thank you very much for that response. I give you 30 seconds, Key.
Just to touching on that, Democrats, as you mentioned, are very, very dedicated to a higher minimum wage, first and foremost. But not only that, we're looking to the future, and as you mentioned, skills, right? We don't necessarily want our community to be at the minimum wage, no matter what it is. We want them to be making $20, $30 an hour. We want them skilled, right? And we think about what the future may bring, right? Biden is bringing manufacturing back over to America. He's focused on clean energy jobs of the future, right? Good paying, skilled labor jobs, right? So when we think about paying people what they're worth, you got to train them up to be worth that. And it's not about raising the minimum wage per se, although we are a big advocate for that. It's also about exceeding that. It's about giving these communities the skills necessary to take care of a family.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much. Our next question, once again, we're changing gears, has to do with voting rights. The John Lewis Advanced Voting Rights Bill that was passed in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives, rather, in July of 2022, is now stuck in the Senate and has been there since its passing. Is your party still supporting that bill? And what is your party doing to advance it through the Senate?
Well, yes. The Democratic Party is the party of wanting every eligible voter to have access to that ballot box. Full stop. And we are still committed to advancing the John Lewis Act. Yes, absolutely. And not only to advance it, but to make it stronger. And as we all know, we have to meet that threshold of the 60 members of either the Senate or in the House. They have to have those votes on the table. And yes, they are continually lobbying their colleagues on the other side to come on board. Why? The question we have to ask is, why is something that this fundamental to our democracy and our Constitution guarantees one vote for every eligible adult in the United States? Well, what we're seeing is a concerted effort across the board, across this nation, to suppress voting. And we know viscerally that when every voter in the playing field is leveled, Black and brown people will come out to the polls and they will vote Democrat in strong blocks, not as a monolith though, but in strong blocks. And that is why Republicans are doing everything they can to put up these voter suppression bills across this country. And Wisconsin has some of the most stringent voter suppression laws in this country. And until and I think we're the last sleeping giant to rise up and understand who has their back, it is the Democratic Party. And until we start to look at these candidates with an eye towards freedom and guarantee of all of our freedoms, including our right to vote, and vote the Democrats out of the Wisconsin State House, we are not going to be able to change some of these laws here in Wisconsin. And as far as the US Senate, had we got rid of Ron Johnson, we wouldn't be asking this question. We would be one step closer to fulfilling John Lewis' vision for this country, where every single legalized adult age citizen can cast a ballot unfettered, untaxed, as part of their right as a US citizen. So yes, we are fighting and we will continue to fight. And we are hoping that we can deliver more votes to that Senate so that that can go forward and become law of the land.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Brother Key, any words?
Yeah, and honestly, she said it best, but I just have not really a comment, but more of a question. We really want everyone to vote, and we ask, why make it harder for people, right? We want everyone to have a vote. So that's our goal. It always has been, but we're not the ones trying to stop absentee ballots or all of these just different tactics that makes it harder, right? We want former felons who have done their time to feel a part of the voting process. We want that. So we want everyone to be one vote, one person, one vote, feel like your vote matters. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
And I want
And we
to
will
correct
leave it up
something
to
I
our-
said, sir. May I correct something?
Please.
I get so riled up about voter suppression. I meant to say, if we could just rise up and vote out every single Republican out of our state legislature, not Democrats, but Republicans. They're the party of suppression. Democrats are the party, one vote, one person. Every person deserves to vote unfettered. Thank you.
So noted. And in answer to your question, Key, we'll leave it up to our constituents to seek that answer. And if they have difficulties in finding answers to their questions, that is the purpose of the NAACP and its Political Action Committee. Our next question has to deal with party membership. What defines membership in your party? How does one join your party? And what are the rights and privileges of someone who is a member? And what opportunities do they have to have input on issues and deciding on candidates?
Thank you. Membership for the Democratic Party, if anyone who, well, let me approach it from this standpoint. There are a lot of folks who vote Democratic for the Democrats that are on the ballot, but they are not a member. If you recall I believe it was American Express that had the expression, membership has its privilege. The privilege of being a dues-paying member of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin is that you do have input on who's on the ballot. You do have an input on who the candidate will be, and you also have access to putting forth resolutions that can become part of our party platform. If you want to become a member of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, go to our website and click on membership, and it'll take you through a process. And as little as $10 can get you a full ride membership. And we have local parties, county parties, that you also can participate fully in, where your voice is fully heard. And you participate in something such as our issues committee. Our issues committee meets once a month, and they pull together resolutions by which then they draft that out and submit it to our state, and it is then voted on by the membership. And that's how our platform is then developed. So as a member of the Democratic Party, you have full access to our candidates, potential candidates. You have full access to your leadership team to help work on these items that is beneficial, that we feel as the Democratic Party, that we are the party that truly has the backs of the people, and the people is on our heart and are at the heart of our work. I mean, we are the party that is working to lower healthcare costs. We are protecting public health in communities of color. We are investing in our small businesses. All of these things are part of the platform of the Democratic Party. And we are looking forward to strengthening Black and brown communities across the board, across several issues. So if you're interested in being a member of the Democratic Party, that means not just only paying your membership and sitting back, but that means coming to our meetings, voicing your opinions, voicing your concerns, helping us to figure out how to tackle the key issues of the day that is going to advance our community. So if Keys could put in a chat that direct link for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, where folks can get involved and get engaged and become members so that they can help put forth resolutions that's going to be beneficial to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Key, would you like to expound? Any comments?
Yeah, just to touch on that, the messaging of the Democratic Party is, like Felicia mentioned, is of the people. I know for a fact after this last Supreme Court race, for example, we had town halls and with our chair and vice chair all over the state, listening. What can we do better? What do you want? Right. Our message is not something that we just come up with. Right. It's a opposite of the trickle down system. Is from the bottom up. Right. We listen. Even at our conventions every year, we have sessions and it can get intense. It's not a monolith, as Felicia mentioned. It can get intense, and we have strong views on how the party should move forward, and we have a say in that, and that's key for me.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question has to do with party loyalty, and this is something, a criticism that has been lodged to both of the major political parties in our country. During every national election, both parties pander to Black, brown, and women voters. Promises are made, but after the election, often those who supported your party, whichever party you represent, are left wanting. What is your response to those who say, "What am I getting for my vote?" or feel that they're getting nothing for their party loyalty?
That's excellent. Well, for the Democratic Party, be it national or here in Wisconsin, we engage the Black and brown communities 365 days a year. We organize year round. We have town halls year round. We have listening sessions year round. We are engaged. We have delivered on several promises. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has led the Democrats in strengthening the lives of every single American citizen and those who are visiting our shores on whatever type of visa there is. But I want to say specifically, we were hit with a COVID pandemic. Who put that package together to help every single family in America, in particular our Black and brown communities? It was the Democrats who put together that COVID plan to make certain that we had PPE, we had vaccines, and that families had finances coming in when they couldn't go to work. They extended those unemployment checks. Every single family, I believe, got anywhere between $1,200 to $3,600 per month in their bank accounts to support families when they couldn't go to work because everything had shut down. It was the Democrats that did that. So if you're wondering what happened to those promises, if you're wondering, what are you getting? You're getting people who know who the folks are, who their supporters are, and whether they supported us or not, we still made certain that they had income coming into their homes during a global pandemic. We're the ones who increased food share dollars to ensure that every family had food during those months, and they still get that. We're the party who made certain that small businesses had access to dollars, that they can keep their doors open. They had to switch a little bit how they delivered their services, but they were able to stay afloat through those dollars that we put through. With those ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan is all what we're talking about, ensuring that families had what they needed during a global pandemic and a shutdown across the country. But we also made certain that we increased internet accessibility, broadband accessibility in urban communities as well as rural communities. So if you're wondering what's going on with after you've cast your vote, my question is, are we still engaged with the party? Are we still holding our elected officials' feet to the fire? Meaning you're calling them and saying, hey, I had X, Y, and Z to happen, and this is what you promised. If I supported you, you were going to deliver on this. Where is this? Hold our feet to the fire and hold us accountable. We are continuing to work to lower healthcare costs so that Black and Brown communities can have access within their communities. They don't have to drive 3 hours to get health care. They can get it in their communities. We are now seeing with this last bill that went out and that the president has signed into law, we are now being aggressive about replacing lead pipes in Black and Brown communities across the board. So the question may also be, how are we looking at the delivery of deliverance on promises and services for our people? If you're seeing it happen, ask, where am I in that line and what am I getting out of it? And hopefully we're listening and understanding how these dollars are being spent across the board. You see, you can't go anywhere in Milwaukee now without there is a detour somewhere, because we have delivered on infrastructure. We are repairing our roads and our bridges and our libraries. All of these things were promised and we are delivering on it now. And we also have to remind you, for that American Rescue Plan, not one Republican voted for that plan to help Americans during a global pandemic. But when they saw the success, they sure touted it and offered up those services. So we have to make sure we're continuing to have these year-round dialogues and know that we are in the community, not in an office, but we're out organizing and knocking on doors and engaging our community direct. And that's how you can tell whether or not we are keeping our promises to you. We can't do everything, but by golly, we're fighting to do everything. It also takes some members from the other side to come along and help us to deliver on these services and these promises. But you know what? We will never give up, and we will not stop fighting for American families and our Blacks, in particularly our Black and Brown communities. We're going to continue to invest in our communities, and we're going to continue to support those small businesses and making certain that those dollars are being invested right where they're needed, right where they're needed. And we're going to continue to fight for more and more benefits in our communities.
Thank you very much for your answer. We're coming around the curve and approaching the finishing line. Our next question is a bit of a philosophical and history one. The Republican Party has always touted itself as the party of Lincoln, as we all know as the great emancipator. The Democratic Party in history is associated with organizations such as the Klan and the South. When did the transition change? When did the Democratic Party become, and I use the term that I've heard Democrats use, the party of the people, versus the Republican Party and whatever adjectives are used to describe them these days?
Well, that's an excellent question. Well, we all know that historic piece of legislation that was signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, the Voting Rights Act. Excuse me, we know that the Dixiecrats lost their minds when that act was passed and gave access to the ballot to every American citizen, including Black and brown folks. And that's when we started seeing that shift where that Dixiecrat switched over and they became Republicans. And the Democratic Party, those folks in the South that was part of that Democratic Party, shifted over to the Republican Party. And it was around that time that you really started seeing that shift and that change. We can hear any political party talk about a lot of different things that sound good. As we used to hear, the Republican Party was the party of family values. What are family values? Has anybody ever cracked that nut and asked them to respond? What family values are they talking about? We hear that they're the party of law and order. The Republicans are. Yet they had a leader that didn't recognize law and order. And we see the fallout in every headline every single day about the damage that has been done. You can talk and say that you are this or that. The Democratic Party is the party of the people because we listen to the people, we put forth solutions, bills and laws bills are signed into law that support the people. And we always fight on the side of what we deem to be family sustaining and enriching, and making certain we keep this code at the forefront of what we do. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator certain unalienable rights. That is not a direct quote, but that's how I hold it in my heart. We fight every day for the liberty of every single US citizen, every single day. We invite immigrants in. That plaque that sits on Ellis Island on the Liberty, the Statue of Liberty, it says, bring me your tired, your poor, and your weary, and your humble masses. There are those who are putting immigration laws in place to stop that. Only if you come from certain countries are you allowed into the United States, according to the Republicans. Democrats, we don't put anything on that. We're saying those who are looking for freedom, for access, for the ability to live out to your full potential, we welcome you. No limits, no criteria to meet. That's what the Democratic Party stands for, and that's what we fight for. Look at the bills that we put forth, look at the laws that have been passed and signed into law that has been put forth by the Democrats, and weigh that against what's been put forth by Republicans. Republicans, it is very evident they are for that top percent only, and let everything else trickle down to the humble masses below. We know trickle-down economics does not work. Only by coming from bottom up do our people's lives improved and are valued. That is the only time that happens. And it is through the Democrats. This happens every single cycle. And it's undeniable. It is undeniable. That is what we do.
Martin. Thank you very much. That's a very enlightening answer. I'll give you 30 seconds, Key. We move on to the next question. And that has to do with undecided voters. There are a great many voters amongst our constituents that are currently undecided on who or which party they're going to support. What do you have to say to these independents and undecided voters to sway them to your party's position?
The approach that we take is we're open in here. We ask you to engage with the candidates. First of all, you got to know what you want, what are your core values, and what are you looking for in your candidates, and how much time you're willing to invest in them and getting to know them and to understand them and how they align with you. For the Democrats, we have candidates forums, we have access, allow access to our candidates so that voters can engage with them. And you know, you have to do your homework. You have to look and see who's delivering and look at yourselves as an American citizen and what is it that you expect? What is it that you expect from them, from those people that you are voting for? And listen beyond the rhetoric, listen beyond the standard arguments that you have heard for decades that don't deliver. And that's how you gauge. And if it's a person who's been in office, look at what they have fought for and have been able to accomplish while they're in office. If they are in office and they have not delivered on their promises, it's up to each voter to decide whether or not they are going to cast a ballot for that person. But you got to get in the game, and you got to be vocal, and you got to be present, and you have to make certain that these folks who claim they have your best interest at heart, you have to make certain by having a conversation with them and looking at their past if they are an elected official. What had they done? Had they fought valiantly and vociferously against gun violence to put in common sense laws that will help protect our people and get these awful guns off the streets? Have they done that? Have they fought for fair housing? Have they fought for higher wages? Have they fought for manufacturing jobs to be brought back on shores and not offshoring those things? Those are the things that Democrats fight for every single day. And those are the things that we have to hold folks to. And during this election cycle, make certain that you are engaging with these candidates. And we will ensure, because we make certain that candidates are, if this is statewide or if it's a federal, we make sure they're hitting every corner of this state and that they are listening to what voters need, and not only to listen, but ensure that they act upon what they've promised on these campaign trails.
Thank you, ma'am. Before I ask our final question of the evening, I don't know if I made it clear at the beginning of our forum, but our questions were all culled from questions that we received from our constituents and partner organizations. And the questions that we selected were the ones that were most frequently asked and the ones that we felt were of the greatest interest to our constituents. My last question of the evening was one that was asked overwhelmingly, and it has to do with protecting our democracy. What is your party's position on what happened on January 6, 2021? Did you see it as a direct assault on our democracy? And if so, what actions are your party taking to prepare, prepared to take to ensure that this never happens again and that those responsible are punished? And I'll allow each of you, Brother Key and Ms. Martin, to respond if you like.
Well, I think we saw on January 6th, that was a direct attack on our democracy. And if we have been paying attention, and we know people's lives are very, very busy, we know that was never in my lifetime have I seen such a direct attack on our democracy. It is incumbent upon every single eligible voter to work and to cast their ballots to ensure something like that never happens again. The Democratic Party will continue to hold educational sessions, roundtables, listening sessions, educational sessions to ensure that something of that nature never happens again. Democrats on the national level are holding people accountable. I can't even say his name. The former president, number 45, they impeached him twice. So I think I know Democrats are holding folks accountable for their attack on our democracy. We see it going through our court system now, and we see it across several states who are working. And for our Department of Justice, they are bringing charges against various individuals. Many have already gone to trial and have already been sentenced. We saw just this week another individual that took part in the January 6th attack on our Capitol. He has been sentenced, I believe, to 16 years in prison, so on and so forth. So we see that, and it is incumbent upon every single American citizen to fight to ensure that our democracy stays intact. But democracy is only as strong as its citizens' engagement. Democracy falls around the world all the time. It is not a guarantee. The only way we can guarantee the democracy of the United States staying in place is by every single eligible voter casting a ballot. And not only casting that ballot, but stay engaged and hold people accountable for their actions. And when like what happened with 45 on the national level, when he was impeached, not one Republican voted in the Senate, not only to listen and hear what the impeachment that came down from the House, but they did not vote to convict. One thing to impeach someone, but what really matters is if we convict them. We need to hold people accountable for their actions, regardless of what party. We need to hold them accountable. And Democrats, we're working and we're fighting hard every day to ensure that every single voter who has a right is able to cast a ballot. But we know that we have in Wisconsin some of the most stringent voter suppression laws in place, and we cannot change that until we change that state legislature and get those laws off the books and guarantee that every single voter has a right and has access to a ballot, be it mail-in or in person. We have to continue to fight and guarantee that. And the Democratic Party will continue to do that. So that's my answer. We're fighting every day. We are ensuring that voters are engaged. We are ensuring that they know what the issues are, and we're calling out Republicans on their shenanigans and when they're doing voter suppression, and when we're calling them out on the words that they use, be it dog whistle or in plain language, that they are here for an authoritarian society versus a democracy where the people's voice is being heard and not suppressed.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. Jennings, I'll give you the final word if you like.
Yeah, and I just like to say one quick thing. I know presidents should ever encourage a violent transfer of power. We're at a crucial point in our history. Our democracy is super fragile. And I look back at John McCain, and he's probably the last version of a uniter in terms of the head of the Republican Party. And when it comes to our democracy and how fragile a democracy can be, we just have to be able to do that. That's key to the future of this country, the survival of this democracy.
Thank you. Before I give my closing comments, I'll give each of you a combined 5 minutes to make any closing comments you'd like to make before we adjourn for the evening.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate this opportunity. I just want to say the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, every day, the leadership team and Democrats across this state and those here in Milwaukee County, we wake up every day with the people's on our hearts, and we're fighting hard for things such as fair maps, strong public education, investment in diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and initiatives across the board. And we want to empower BIPOC communities and underrepresented communities throughout Wisconsin. We want to make certain that every single individual who's eligible to vote are able to cast their ballots unfettered, unhindered. And we want to make certain that we are continuing to fight for fair maps. There is a lawsuit that has been put forth by individuals that are challenging our maps, because right now our maps do not reflect the people. They were drawn in such a way that Republicans will continue to have control over our state legislature, and that is undemocratic. That is not the sign of a democracy. We want to make certain that Black and Brown communities know and understand that they have all the tools and resources that they need, and that Democrats are working hard every day to ensure that their needs are met and that they have their voices lifted up and heard and acted upon. We want to make certain that folks like Tammy Baldwin are reelected, who is fighting hard on the front lines, who is focusing on uplifting our minority-owned small businesses right here and making sure that those businesses have access and that we are expanding the Minority Business Development Agency. Right now, she's secured $550 million in new funds for minority-owned businesses, which includes our Black-owned businesses. We want folks to know that Democrats are not only fighting, but we are also delivering on promises that we made to them, and we'll never stop fighting. And we will always, always be the party of the people. And we ask that people please go out, vote. That is your power. That is your voice. And until we all understand that and look at the evidence of our vote, what have the Democrats delivered for you, especially during a global pandemic where lives were being taken? In my family, I lost 42 members to COVID-19, but I know that Democrats helped my family members by making certain that every single household had uninsured unemployment benefits, had healthcare benefits, that we are continuing to fight on the Democratic side to expand Medicare and Medicaid for all families across the board. The Democratic Party is the party that is looking for family sustaining jobs, looking to increase that minimum wage, looking to increase skilled labor. We're looking to increase apprenticeship programs and help our union brothers and sisters to reach out into all communities, and that to ensure that our Black and brown folks are being lifted up with the tide along with everyone else, and that no one is left behind. And we're strengthening our public school systems because all of our children deserve a first-class education. And that is what we're going to continue to fight for. And we will continue to do the work that our hands have been assigned to do. And with Joe Biden as president, Kamala Harris as vice president, and Tammy Baldwin as our senator, and Gwen Moore as our congresswoman, we will continue to fight that battle and do it with integrity.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jennings, you have exactly 30 seconds left to offer any.
Amazing. Yeah, I would just, quickly, I would just like to say, we probably all don't know, our president has done some great things in a short amount of time, some historic things, right? More diverse judges than any other president combined since he's been in office. American Rescue Plan, infrastructure law. We got student loan deferment / forgiveness that he's trying to take care of. He's helped communities of color all over the country, right? Just to bring it more to a local level, I know personally the Democratic Party of Wisconsin listens, right? We have initiatives like the coalition. I am an example of trying to do it differently, right? I'm the Black Coalition Manager trying to organize my community in a different way, in ways that are enticing, right? A different way. We have candidate trainings for people of color, LGBTQ plus candidates, so we can have different diverse perspectives at the table. We have to get different perspectives there, be able to speak on the situations and the lived experiences of our communities, right? We need that, right? So the party is taking steps, right? We are here to listen and actually put action to our words. And I am I believe in this party wholeheartedly. And I would just like to end and say thank you for this opportunity. Love an open dialogue. I just want to emphasize we are for the people, and we are definitely looking to make sure that we have diverse perspectives at the table, and our community members are engaged.
Thank you. Once again, on behalf of the Milwaukee branch of the NAACP, our president, Mr. Clarence P. Nicholas, and the Political Action Committee, I'd like to thank you both for joining us this evening and making time to be with us. We appreciate it, as does our voting public. The NAACP is a totally nonprofit organization. We'd like to extend an invitation to other political parties to join us for future virtual forums. And once again, we do extend an open invitation to the representative from the Republican Party, as well as other political parties, to join us for future live forums. We want our constituents to be totally aware of not only the issues, but where each party stands on those issues. So once again, I thank you for joining us, and I bid you all good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.